Welcome to another episode of How I Made It Through. This season, it's so important for me to bring together people who've had amazing experiences that have been so transformational, as I had experienced one. And so this week, I have Megan Brown with us, and I'm so grateful. Megan is a multifaceted individual whose transformative journey was sparked by a near death experience in 2007, shaping her into an inspirational author, podcast host, psychic, and teacher. Her mission revolves around teaching the universal language of love she discovered during her 5 days in heaven. So, welcome, Megan. I'm so happy you are here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really happy to be here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I want, again, as I was saying when I started, I've met so many people with so many amazing experiences. And as we talked a little bit before we got on the air was how important it is for us to share these stories and to help other people to understand how there's more growth for them. So I would love to have you start in whatever way, maybe a short little bit about your NDE and then talking about some of the things that really have come since then. But I will let you take it from here for a little bit.
All right. Thank you. So I will start by saying that I had grown up in the Roman Catholic Church, and until age 20, I was pretty ensconced in it as a child, and then a little bit as a teenager. I went to church, and then at age 20, I had the rape happen to me, and then the abortion from the rape, because I'd gotten pregnant from the rape. So that's what pushed me into atheism and not believing. And I felt that there could be no God. How could all of this life happen to me? Because there was a lot of stuff before in my life as well, but that was like the turning point for me where I chose the atheism. And I thought there could be no God. I've never hurt anybody in my life. And now I'm faced with like just one thing after another. So I got very, very angry. And I remember feeling just the deepest sadness. And for 18 years, I just went on, I worked, I'd get out of bed every day and just do my best, because that's all we can do, right? And then I got married, I had a child, and it was right after my son's and my birthday, because we have the same birthday. 6 weeks later is when I had this autoimmune disease kick in. And I wound up having to fight for my life in a way, because I was alone and in the hospital and trying to, I had no idea what was going on. I was very physically fit, and I didn't think that anything like this could ever hit me. And it started off with C. diff colitis, which never got better. And I had a doctor telling me, I've given you this, and then now I've upped you to this milligrams of morphine, and you should be fine. But it didn't take any effect. I was in that much pain. So for the first time, I heard a voice, and it wasn't the doctor who was in the room talking to me, and it wasn't me. And it said, make a scene, make it big, or you won't make it out. And I thought, who is this? Where did that just come from? But I was in a Catholic hospital, and having grown up Catholic, I knew exactly what to say to offend. So I did. And the doctor didn't leave, and he just stood there looking at me. And I had to do a little bit more work on that. And so I gave him about 30 seconds, and then he couldn't believe it, and then he left. So one thing after another, where I was fighting for my own life to get in. But finally, after firing that doctor, which I did, I got another doctor who could see that, oh my gosh, she's gained 43 pounds of fluid in 3 days. She's gray. So nobody checked my kidney levels, my creatinine level. And that's when they found out that I was really in kidney failure. So one thing moved into the next. And it was shortly after being diagnosed with kidney failure when they took me to dialysis where the journey into heaven began. And that's not something that I had planned. And I remember walking through the clouds and there was Jesus. It looked like Earth, okay? Grass, trees, birds in the sky, blue sky with clouds. It was absolutely beautiful. And I looked at him and I remember saying, oh my God, you really do exist. Because I didn't believe that he existed. And he just opened up his arms and smiled, and I walked toward him, and then he gave me a hug. But he led me to my life review to meet my other guides there with him. After that, I met with Archangel Michael, and he put Psalm 91 over my soul. He spoke it, held up his hand, and the white flame was hitting my soul. It was very moving. It was an incredible moment. And I remember crying. And Archangel Michael looked at me and he said, Megan, why are you crying? And I said, because I've been such a jerk to all of you guys. I said, I didn't believe in any of you. And I've had nothing but bad things to say about you and God and Jesus and the church. And, and his response to me was so sweet. He said, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to love you. And from the moment that he said that, that is something that has imprinted my soul. And I share it because I would really like people to hear that and take that for themselves and utilize that little line wherever they can in their life, whatever the struggle is that they're up against, or meeting people who didn't believe in them, perhaps, or who were judging them. But then after that, I was taken into temple, and the moment that my foot hit the floor walking in, I felt this, I was hit with this wave of a warmth and a comfort level that I'd never felt before. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where am I? And I felt like I was floating to the table. It was almost like, I don't even know if I've described it like this before, but it's like being in shock. Okay, this feels so good. Where am I? I'm not floating, I'm walking, but you don't even remember as you're walking, you're just doing it. I was on autopilot completely, but Jesus pulled out my chair and then he sat to my left. And then there was this old man at the table, the head. I thought, who is this guy? You know, I didn't recognize anybody at the table other than Mahatma Gandhi and Paramahansa Yogananda and my guides who I just met. But I didn't know. I just knew that they were all looking at me with no judgment. And there were 77 of us sitting there. So I just received so many messages, and from God himself. As it turns out, the old man started talking, and I thought, I looked around the table. I remember looking around and everybody's eyes were on him. And I thought, who is this guy? You know? And then he announced, I wasn't even hearing him. I just kept wondering, who is this guy? Why are they all listening to him? And he announced, and Megan will be going back to Earth. And in my head only, I said, oh, fuck. Right? And he goes, oh, fuck is right, Megan. And I stopped and I thought, I knew I was in the presence of God. And I was so apologetic. I was embarrassed. I didn't know. It was the most awkward time in my entire life that I've ever felt, because I said the F-bomb in front of God, not knowing it was him. So he told me, he says, it's a man-made word. I'm not offended. And he said, but be careful what you think, because I hear your thoughts. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is no joke. So the Catholic Church, from when I was a kid in catechism, 5 years old, learning, God can hear your thoughts. God can hear your wishes. God can hear your prayers. And I didn't ever believe it. I never did, because of my life. And so I just, I heard it one in one ear and out the other, but he really does listen to all of that. So that's like the short, I want to be respectful of the time. That's the short jump into heaven. like the administrative part of heaven, I should say, because there's so much more that happened after that.
Wow.
If you have questions, yeah.
Yeah, no, just even that, you're telling it beautifully. You're doing a great job. So keep going, whatever, it is. So what happened next? You came back, or you were there for longer? What?
So I was actually out of it on Earth for 15 days. And so really, the book, A Catalyst, was God's order. In that first 5 minutes after I said the F-bomb, he ordered me to write a book. And I looked at him and I said, I've never written a book before. And he said, I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not an English major. I don't care. Okay. Yeah. Like I didn't have the qualifications, or so I thought, right? I didn't have any qualifications of speaking about any formal religion other than what I remembered from Catholicism. I didn't have any business talking about anything as far as I was concerned. But what I've come to understand is that my experience, it's so important to know that my experience was not religious. It was a very spiritual experience that opened my soul, shined a light on me, gave me permission to be myself, gave me a soul purpose beyond being a wife at the time, and a mother, and a daughter, and a sister, and a child. I didn't know what soul purpose meant at that point. I didn't know what anything meant, really. I mean, I didn't even care to think about it. It's not that I don't even know how to say it. I didn't care to think about it. I didn't have any reason to think about any of that. But here I was given reason and explanations and so many stories that I had to witness and hear about, that I have been forever changed by the experience so drastically that my life as I knew it changed on so many different levels because of the autoimmune disease. And it took me down, and God knew. I mean, I remember after my rape privately saying, if there is a God, it's not that I believed, but I said, if there is a God, he would have to prove it to me. And that angel thing and that Jesus thing, I remember saying this like a few times just in my head in my 20s. And I remember the night that I met my ex-husband, I looked up at the ceiling because I was at this big, huge party with another friend. And I looked up at the ceiling. I was 30 years old. And I said, I'm done. If there's God, you can pull me. And that's how I felt. I had lived so much life at that point, and I didn't think that there was anything that could develop. I didn't think that there was any purpose. So not having a purpose, what was I here for, was my question. But as a result of my NDE and being given instructions, because I was given instructions, however, they don't tell you, because of free will and choice, they couldn't tell me how to do something. So God ordered me to write a book, but he couldn't tell me how, because I asked him, what do you want me to write about? And he said, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. They do, even in my experience, I've not had an NDE, but they give you information, but they give you enough to send you on your way. And then you, so when you wrote the book, The Catalyst, My 5 Days in Heaven, what was what did you decide was the purpose of the book? Was there a part of the feeling of love, or was it, what message did you want to give when you wrote that book?
I wanted to explain how I went from not believing in anything to how I understood heaven and how God came to be in my life. And I crammed so many messages in there in my experience in heaven. It's hard for people, some people, not all people. I mean, some people are like, wow, that's very detailed. And it is. But see, here's the thing. Getting back to the book title, I called it My 5 Days in Heaven because I was out of it on earth for 15 days. And 3 earth days is 1 heaven day. So it was just 5 days in heaven, heaven's time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was like 15 days earth time. But I didn't know about any other NDEs. I didn't ever look at any of that. I sure didn't know computers or technology. I mean, that was not my thing at all. And I didn't know that there was a world of it. I'd never heard of, like, for instance, Raymond Moody. I'd never heard of him before my NDE. I didn't know any of this. So here I am finding out information, and I'm just writing it. So that's why there's so much information, because Earth time, I was gone. I was gone for 15 days. But heaven's time, it was 5 days. So it speeds up. And the reason why heaven speeds up is because love is such a quick, clear, clean power. And it's just this energy that you just move through. And there's no blockages. There are no blockages. Like we here on Earth, my gosh, we have blockages every day in our thoughts, in our interactions with people, like at the store, or somebody being rude to us, or whatever we do in our lives. That's a blockage of energy, because it challenges us to stay in the truth of who we are. And so who we are is love. And that's my purpose, kind of getting back to something you touched upon. But I've come to know that my purpose is to share the messages from God and everybody else. And I didn't understand this all overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Next month is June. It'll be 18 years since that experience. And it has graduated different levels. I've come to understand over years, because heaven has put me in situations where they've tested me, and I've had to pass tests. Like, they'll pull me up into heaven, or God will pull me up into the clouds and give me orders to do something. I challenged him once because I didn't want to do it. Well, he pulled me back up and he ordered me to do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. But it turned out to be true. And it was world changing. And I had no idea what, and I thought, okay, so now I didn't understand why he gave me that mission, because I never got a response. And here, years after that, it's been, I don't know, 15 years after that, I believe that it was to have faith in every time heaven comes to me, or they pull me into heaven. I'm to just act in faith, forward in faith, not ask questions for, okay, but why am I doing this? Okay, well, what is it going to do? It's not my need to understand.
Yeah, it's that surrender. It's that surrender to. So there's 2 things that just brought up 2 things for me. One is when you experience love, heavenly love, it is so different from earthly love in terms of what we are taught love is down here. And so I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about that. And then just remembering the surrender as you're saying this, as they're calling, asking you that surrender that we have. But if you could just talk a little bit about what, just how different it is. It's so, and I know it's hard to explain, but if you could put a little color on it.
Okay, I will do my best.
Yeah.
I remember feeling completely accepted. There was never any judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling that I could be my full self. I could express my feelings to God even and tell him, well, for instance, here's something there's another moment here I'd like to share so that I can tie together for you what I mean by telling God how I feel. And this was love, okay? And then I'll explain the structure of love, how I've learned it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to go, Jesus pulled me aside, and we were in a room. It could have been my tent because I had to stay in this big purple tent. And it could have been in the tent. And what we had to watch was a world review. So I call it a world review because it was about the world, but it was similar in that it was on a screen and it was like my life review. So when I watched my life review, it was like watching it on a TV. However, there were no chords. It just appeared. So, but it played out like a movie. Okay. Every single second of your life, you don't miss a thing. You don't miss your thoughts. You don't miss your emotions. You don't miss the other person's emotions that's involved in that situation or circumstance that you're in. There's nothing that you will miss. Okay. It's like this download, and it's so complex, and it's all at once. And so anyway, Jesus and I sat in front of this like screen, and we had to watch the first. I didn't know why we were in there, and he started playing the Native Americans here in the United States in the 1100s. And he showed me how the Europeans came in and started killing them off, and raping the women, and burning their homes, and making them sick. And this is when the Native Americans disbanded. But until they got there, it was only the Native Americans here in the United States. They are the first people. And this was a history lesson. This is heaven's history lesson. Now, there were no books probably, and I don't know if there are or not, but I doubt that there are any books talking about how the Native Americans were the only ones here in the 1100s until the Europeans came in. But that's from heaven. So after we watched that, and I was just crying. I remember crying and feeling this sadness that people were being violated in such ways that were so unnecessary, but based upon greed and their own personal necessities of advancement to their need to be in power. And it made me angry. And then the next segment that we had to watch was World War II. And we had to watch Hitler in Rain, and how he was murdering all of the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
He was murdering elderly people, gays, the sick, handicapped. He didn't care. Hitler didn't care. This happened. And I was I thought, how can I, this is so hard to watch. And I'm still sobbing. How could you not cry? And here I am feeling everything, the fear that these people felt, the world started to feel, right? So after that, we watched the civil rights movement. And I had to watch everything, and how the Blacks were treated because of their skin hue. How people were being minimized and segregated. And again, I was sobbing. And I remember the moment that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. walked up the stairs in that motel and he was shot. He was fatally shot. And I remember just throwing my hands up over my face like this. And I looked at Jesus and I said, "Oh my God, we've murdered you twice." And so I say this because it's so important to understand that the second coming of Christ has already happened. And I know that that is not something that people are being taught. They're still waiting, perhaps, and forgive me, I don't know specifically what, but perhaps they're waiting for the same look of whatever they think Jesus looks like. It doesn't happen that way. It's reincarnation. And I learned about reincarnation, which I didn't believe in, when God told me it was real. And he told me that I'd been reincarnated so many times. And I said, wait, because I grew up Catholic. Okay, so wait, reincarnation's real? And he said, yes, of course. So Jesus reincarnated as Dr. King. And so I find it interesting that Dr. King was trying to bring around the miracle of love through peace and acceptance. And this was his mission. And he was silenced, right? He was silenced. And there are people who have picked up the torch since him and who are trying to keep his message alive, as well as Jesus, as well as, the Native Americans, as well as what happened in World War II. There are people. But I don't normally talk about this at length like I'm doing here right now, but there are things that I'm watching in our world that have made me think about how I'm going to share today with you. Like, I think it's important that people hear that the sadness that I watched is something that we need to be careful for, because there are reasons why I had to meet with Marvin Gaye, Rick James, Buddy Rich, Terry Kath, Freddie Mercury. I'm a huge Queen fan since age 11. So Freddie Mercury, we were all in my tent after the concert that God orchestrated for me. I mean, it was incredible. And Billy Barty, Spike Jones, Cole Porter, all of these souls, and then all of the archangels that were there in the beginning when I was at God's table, when I very first gotten into heaven, and they were all sitting. But the rest of us, not the archangels, they were protecting us, but the rest of us were drinking red wine that the cherubs kept pouring into the decanters in our glasses. And then we were eating bread that was in a golden basket on the table, right in front of us. And it didn't even hit me back then how Catholic that is. It didn't register only until like 2 years ago, maybe, where it registered like, oh my God, that was so Catholic. And then I said that to somebody and they said, well, actually that's around a lot of religions. And I said, well, I don't know a lot of religions. I don't know any of them. As a matter of fact, I'm open to them, but I grew up Catholic. So we were doing that. And then Prophet Muhammad walked in and we all stood and bowed. And I had seen Prophet Muhammad at God's table when I got there, but here he was coming into my tent. And we all stopped laughing and drinking, right? Because we were talking about our past lives together and how Freddie Mercury and I were married 3 lifetimes ago, how Terry Kath and I were siblings. I can't remember how many lifetimes ago, but each one of us had a history with one another in previous lives. And so Prophet Muhammad came in, and when we all sat down, he immediately just, his contact with his eyes was directly at me. And he spoke about how the Middle East, he's never stopped praying for the Middle East. He's never stopped praying for the world. And it's important that people hear this. He's praying for the world. We are the world. We are united. It's not a segregation. Islam is not about just Prophet Muhammad praying for them. Now, I wasn't raised in it. Okay, I'm treading respectfully, but I'm trying to make the point that he's so incredibly powerful and beautiful and loving, and he prays for the world. Okay, so then he went on to tell me to give orders in my book that God ordered me to write, to let the Middle East know that killing has to stop. Killing in the name of God has to stop, because that's not godly. And after he was done talking to me, I said, he paused, and I said, may I ask you a question respectfully? I said that to him, and he said, of course. And I said, why do you want me, an ex-Catholic, ex-atheist? I don't even know what I am now. I don't even know what to call myself. Why do you want me to spread your message? And he said, I have my ways. And he was very serious. And I thought, okay. I mean, I'm not going to question him, because I know how intense God is, because we all sat together, and God's in control of everything. But Prophet Muhammad and Jesus was sitting to my left. Prophet Muhammad was across the table from me. And I know that they are specific energies of love that have come here to this planet, and they have lived as representatives of love and given their wisdom to the world, given their wisdom to their societies, who perhaps had no hope of maybe how things could get better. Or I wasn't living back then, as far as I know. Could have been, I don't know. But I feel like they were trying to be the philosophers of their time, and they were. And I believe that they created information for people to comfort and to teach. And in order to teach these people how to teach their families and friends how to be of love to this world. And I guess where I'm going with this applies to Judaism as well. I did meet King David. I did have to read all of these books, the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah. I read them all in heaven. Do I remember them all? No. So I do know that there are absolute, perfect words of wisdom in all of those books, because of who these people were, who I met, and who I engaged with in heaven. But people such as myself, who have had NDEs, or such as yourself, who have had guidance from heaven step in, we need to start talking about these things in order to normalize it, number one. But these are powerful messages of heaven. And each one of us is a messenger for God and heaven. Each one of us has an opportunity, number one, because heaven won't tell us what to do. God makes orders, but he doesn't tell you how to do things. And if you choose not to do it, like had I chosen not to talk about any of this stuff, I'd probably have to reincarnate. And God knows I do not want to reincarnate. I mean, literally, he knows. So I am trying now my hardest to share the messages of love that are also coming after these people of the book, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, have put together as their sacred divine words and messages. And I want us as the NDEers to collaborate, not replace, but collaborate with those who have come before us and respect what has already been written
Mhm.
order to help humanity advance in this now, as they say in heaven, in this now, because people such as myself are coming back with messages that don't sound like what are in the Bible. And I'm just speaking to the Bible because I've had a lot of Christians,
Mhm.
come out and say things to me that you're blasphemous, basically, for what you're
Mhm.
saying. No, I assure you, I'm not blasphemous. I
Yeah.
was not speaking what you have been conditioned to think.
Well, and I think that um, that is an important message, and it's an important message because we do, as a humanity, get stuck in certain, in certain things, and to realize that the connection with heaven, with God, or whatever your a higher power, whatever your word is, that connection is here today. That we all that I think is the importance of the NDEs and the spiritually transformative experiences that some of us are having, not because we were chosen as being special, but because they something happened. You have to release all. There's a moment of release when, in order to make this connection happen. Yeah, there's a moment of where and in some cases it's a physical release. Like in your case, um, you were so ill, and that crossing over uh, took place. And for me, it was more of an emotional, when it happened, that there was emotional things going on. But it has to, we tend to go through this earthly life just like, thinking that everything's already been laid out. There's no new news, kind of, from the other side. And I think that's the importance, and this idea that love is so different, and that love is so encompassing and so incredible. Um, does that sound? Uh,
Yeah, but there's something I heard you say. I think we're all chosen, and
mhm,
I think we're all special, and that
mhm,
we all need to know is that we are.
yeah.
And I I will say, okay, so before Prophet Muhammad, before he left the tent, he looked still looking at me, and he said, "My time allotted with you is done." I think he said done or through now. He said, "I must go. Put the book out." So many souls in heaven. I'm talking Jesus, Archangel Michael, King David, Prophet Muhammad. They were started with God, put the book out. And after he left, I'm going to go back to, because I don't want to lose Marvin Gaye's voice, because they gave me a really powerful message. So Marvin Gaye told me, "Megan, you have to go back and be our voice." He said, the civil rights movement, and I can't remember if I'd watched those videos, the world reviews with Jesus, before this happened or after it happened. I don't remember at what point in my NDE that this happened. But I remember him saying, you have to go back and be our voice. And you have to tell people what a struggle it was to live as a Black man in that period of time of the civil rights movement. He said we were spat on, we were beaten, we were, there were hoses sprayed on us, hung, murdered. He said, why? And then Rick James was saying the same thing. Ella Fitzgerald, Cole Porter. And I just sat there. And this was after Prophet Muhammad left, because we were all so moved by the power of what Prophet Muhammad had said, because he was saying it to all of us. It was directed at me to come back and do it here on earth. They weren't reincarnating, and they all told me, you've got to do it. So here I'm listening to them and I'm crying. And then Billy Barty, I'd met twice in my life before heaven while he was alive here on earth. And here I am seeing him in heaven. And he said, I want you to tell people how difficult it was being a little person and being made fun of and being told, oh, you should just go into the circus. You'll never work a day in your life and things like this. Oh my God. I thought, why are people so cruel? You know? And then Freddie Mercury told me that he said, I want you to tell people that it was not easy to transition my personal sexual preference at the height of my career. You know, he went from heterosexual to homosexual. And I've never forgotten these messages. And I think it's so important for all of us to start using these messages of love that we've been given and not judge one another, what our experiences were or how we got the messages. Because I've had hundreds of out-of-body experiences where I received more messages. And you know what? They're all good. They're all from heaven. So I'm going to share them, you know?
Yeah.
But I think everyone needs to, I guess, embrace that God speaks in many ways.
Yeah.
Not just in what we have been conditioned to believe is the only way, whatever that only way is. Okay. Because there are a lot of only ways. That's what I learned growing up. So we are all the way and we are all love.
Yeah.
But what I have learned also, getting back to love and the structure of love so this has developed over the years since my NDE. I've come to understand, and this was all because of God and heaven. It all started there. And I remember feeling like nobody understands what love is. I mean, this planet, what is love? And so I started looking it up in the dictionary. Okay, what is love? Define love for me. Well, it's about relationships, or love can be used as, oh, I love that TV show. Oh, I really love going to that place. Or I love you as a friend. Or I love you as a mother to a child. Or I love you to your spouse. All these variations of love, but nothing is about the structure of love. So what I've learned from heaven since the NDE is the soul. So I use the acronym LOVE. So the L represents the light within, and that's our soul. And the O stands for organic. We are each organic energetically. The moment that we are, actually, it's the moment we're conceived, we're organic, but we are organic from, figure the moment that we're born, okay? Our imprints, what we carry, actually, before we're born, I'm thinking about the whole water thing that they came to me with starting in December of last year. It's the waters of our mothers and our fathers with the patterns that were in their waters that we, their children, are being formed with. And those waters, because I've heard people say, oh, there's generational curses. And I read about this recently and I thought, well, yeah, there is a generational curse. The curse is that no one understands how important it is to understand water and hold water as sacred. Now, having said that, the Christians, they use baptism, right? Water is baptism. In Judaism, what is it? I'm embarrassed. I can't remember what I read, but water is used in Judaism. And in Islam, I know they wash their hands before praying, and they're clean, right, for God. So, and I'm sure there's more to that. That's all I remember. So water in our parents translates, and it is who we become. So we have their emotions from their waters in us. This is how we start. Add on to that, we have our own lives that we have to process, we have to experience, and we have to like figure out. So all
Mhm.
of that, right?
Yeah.
So that water, I'll get to that after, but anyway,
Well, we're
that's,
getting close on time, so so
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Okay, so the V stands for voice. Your voice starts from the moment of your thought's inception. And the E stands for echo. How do you want your voice or your thoughts to echo within you
Nice.
throughout the world? That's the
Say it
structure.
all. Say it all again. So the L is for
The light within. The
good.
O is being, that we are organic. The V is for voice, and the E is for echo.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That is a beautiful acronym. And when you really think about it, you can feel the love in that description.
Mhm.
You know, Megan, I wish we had, I mean, I would love to have you come back again. I wish we had a ton more time. But it is, I love, just this understanding of, you've kind of gone back a little bit into the ancient, not ancient, but ancient enough, um, helping us to understand how what things, what it's looked like, what's been the love that's been missing as we've looked at these, these different, the Native Americans and the World War II and the civil rights movement. And then, it's been a fascinating story, this NDE and the who you met with. It is so incredible how spirit puts us. I don't want to use the word story because story makes it sound like it's not real, but I believe it's the way they give messages to you in a way that is the easiest way for you to come back and to share share your message with us. Um, how do people, if they want to connect with you, if they want to work with you, if they want to know more, how can they reach you? What's the way for them to reach you and how to connect with you?
They can go to conversationswithmegan.com, and I have a website. They can reach out to me there. And
How do you work with people?
so a lot of people reach out to me for basically psychic readings, but what I'm doing is I'm connecting to heaven, and it's heaven giving the individual their messages that they need to know. So that's what I do. I also teach a course, The Structure of Love, and
Nice.
it's about a more developed understanding of what the love is and how to utilize it in your own life.
And can they find that on your website?
Um, I can't remember. I know I put The Structure of Love in there. I'm still developing that part on there, but that is what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I talk about coaching people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I will include, so not only will your website be there, but I'll also include an email address, the Conversation with Megan email address. So if somebody has a question for you about that. I want to continue bringing, even the same people back on as we continue to go deeper into some of these topics and experiences that people have had, and I would love for you to come back again. So it is, yeah. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. It is, as we put all of these little pieces together and we hear from different people, we get a bigger understanding. And I know there are people out there that are listening that are going to really resonate with your story.
I really hope so. And I just want to add two things. One, I've learned, in the beginning, when people would reach out to me, oh, do you want to talk about your NDE? I was excited and I wanted to share it, and I do. But then it's dawned on me that there's more of a responsibility in talking about my NDE. Like I need to break this stuff down. This is huge. So what is it, Megan? So that's what I was trying to do. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is that there was somebody in Bahrain who reached out to me because of the posts that I put and said, you should be teaching this. And I said, well, that's what I'm trying to do. And I said, I'd love to get into the educational school systems and teach the structure of love and make this mandatory from K through 12. And these are the developmental years of the brain, right? So he said, well, I am a teacher. And he started teaching some of the things that he was seeing. And I was so excited. And I thought, wow. So I'm saying that teachers can reach out to me with this specific question. How do they teach love in the schools? Because love is not a religion. You can't talk about religion. So just remember, love is not a religion.
Yeah. And that's what it is. So let's leave it with that. And I'm so grateful you were here, and I look forward for you to come back sometime.
Thank you so much.